Welcome to Show on the Go. It's your boy Ross Go Squeeze Off, doing another individual segment of our show on police and people of color. I think this is the second segment we've done. So basically, what I was getting to, and I don't know how much. I know people of color is kind of pushing this right now, agenda, at least the Black Lives Matter movement, things of that nature. I was going to talk about defunding the police. Now, I know that's not a new term. I know that's happened many times in history, but they're talking about like disbanding in Minnesota, and they're just defunding. Now, I have no problem with pulling some funds and allocating them other places, because what you want to do is you want to probably take some of the burden off of police. Now, I forget where I heard this on the radio. I listen to a lot of political radio. Sometimes I'm riding around, and I heard somewhere where they were talking about, instead of when it's domestic disputes, depending on the severity of it, if there's no weapons drawn or something to that nature, that they were going to start sending social workers. Now, that's tough, because with domestic disputes, they can go any direction. When it comes to matters of the heart, people can pull out a weapon, and you kind of want somebody there with a weapon to hopefully hold law and order. As far as like defunding the police or disbanding, I just think you gotta have a plan in place, because I don't know who's pulling the strings for these agendas, if they're thought all the way out. I just know that when an emergency happens, you call 911. 911 sends police, depending on the emergency. So if you're going to disband them, you got to have something in place right away. Or are you willing for total anarchy, or are you just willing for everyone to police themselves, which becomes almost the Wild Wild West, which that's not even the Wild Wild West, because they had a town sheriff who may have been, worried about himself or not, but but at the same time, you did have some force of law. Now, I understand you want to get the police thing right, and like I think I told you before, police don't, they always had sheriffs. The only purpose of police, when it started, the very first one was in Richmond, Virginia. It started for the purpose of overseeing released slaves. That's what it started for. He wanted to keep the slaves in check, relock them up, put them into the prison system, and then lease them out as cheap labor. So you can see where policing never had a great mix with black people from its conception in America. But over time, we have many black cops that are there now. We have many good cops, not to quote what the president said, but good people on both sides thing, but there are many good cops. Now, the problem is, we got to stop the protection of bad cops. Because what happens, what I've seen, is like the case with George Floyd. Those other three cops are guilty just for the simple fact that they just sat there and they watched this man, do what he was doing, and they did not want to upstage another cop unless they totally agreed with what he was doing. They did not want to upstage another cop in front of other people. It's also one I saw where a guy pushed white guy pushed somebody, and a black female cop jumped his bones, literally pushed him away, and was berating him in front of everybody to keep that from escalating further. And that's what you kind of need, just in case you do have guys that do go overboard, their adrenaline starts to run, and they want to do the wrong thing. Somebody needs to be there to stop that, especially when there's multiple officers. You can't have a thing where like the Rodney King beat many years ago. I think it was 25 or 30 years ago now, where you just have a group of people, everybody's doing the same thing. You see one guy beating on a guy, so you jump in it too. Not necessarily. We need to make sure that, the training is there, and we need actually more than the training, because they get trained. We need the punishments to be there. If in my theory, my thing is, it's a reason why people don't do much theft in Pakistan. Because if you steal something and they cut your hand off for it, you realize it's not worth the risk of stealing something. And if you do steal something, it's going to be quite valuable to be worth your hand. So we kind of got to do a similar thing with police, incentivize them to do their job, but not to go above and beyond, or to abuse in any way. And I mean outright abuse. That George Floyd was outright abused. They're always going to be walking the line type of situations. It's always going to be. You're going to be where someone thinks the old 6 and 9. Somebody stands on the bottom of it, says that's a 6. Somebody stands on the top of it, says that's a 9. So yeah, you're always going to have those situations. But you want to make sure these clear-cut ones, like the George Floyd and so many that we've seen online, and with the video, the police thing, you can tell some of these are just clear-cut. But we need to make sure they know that's clear-cut, and also make sure they think that before they can just say, well, hell, I'm the police, I can do what I want. They got to think, hey, I got a family to get home to too. I don't want to go to jail. I don't want to, any of that kind of stuff. So I fully hope we do that, but I just don't want to get rid of police without a plan in place. Because I believe, like I said, Minnesota is really wants to disband it. And like I said, defunding is one thing. If you're taking away, I'm making up numbers off the top of my head. If police get, $4 billion a year in your city, and what you want to do is take away $1 billion of that and allocate those in different places, you can do it, but you got to have a place for those police to go. Because what's going to happen is you're going to make those police and those police unions mad, because their benefits, their retirement, what they were promised when they took their job, 20, 30 years ago and stuff like that, if that's going to get affected, if everyone has a possibility of getting affected, if you've committed a crime or done anything wrong, you're going to make them band together and not do anything. And that's what happens. Now, what you got to do is find a way to punish the ones who mess up. Have you ever thought about starting your own podcast? When we were trying to get this podcast off the ground, we had a lot of questions. How do we record an episode? How do we get our show on all the apps that people will listen to? How do we make money off of our podcast? The answer to every one of these questions is really simple. Anchor. Anchor is a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing our podcast. Best of all, it's 100% free and ridiculously easy to use. And now Anchor can match you with some great sponsors who want to advertise on your podcast. That means you can get paid to podcast right away. In fact, that's what I'm doing right now by reading you this ad. Anchor, we started almost about a year ago, and it's been a godsend. Like I said, it's a one-stop shop for everything. You don't have to have any experience, and it takes you where you want to be. So if you've always wanted to start your own podcast and make money by doing it, go to anchor.fm/start. That's anchor.fm/start. And join me and the diverse community of podcasters already using Anchor. That's anchor.fm/start. I can't wait to hear your podcast. You got to punish the ones who mess up, and then you got to also find a way to see who wants to move to a different area of a different resource area of protecting the people. Now, that I don't know. Police do everything. They do so much. A cat stuck in a tree. I had to tell you, I had a snake in my car before. Police took that out and got bit and everything. I mean, police handle so many different situations. Domestic disputes. Like little kids walking in the street, nobody knows where their parents are. You call the police. I mean, police handle everything. Depending on the city you're in, the lights go out. The street lights, traffic lights come out. Police come out and they do that as well. Police handle such a wide range of things. A lot of cities now you have police in the schools for protection in the schools. Now that's why I say maybe you can allocate differently. I know some areas have what's called resource officers, which are like they take the same training as the police and the whole nine, but they work the school. I know Baltimore City has like Baltimore City School Police, which are like unionized police officers, but they don't do the other stuff. They focus strictly on the school. And that's kind of what I'm talking about here. We need to have it in a situation where different things, I don't know what somebody much smarter than myself needs to decide what areas we're going to do for what. So if you have school police, that's its own little police. They're still police. They still get paid for the police stuff or from the school, could be the school system. But you pull those in a different area. They line up in a slightly different uniform or slightly different cars or what have you. But they work, or some identified way to know that they're school police. They work the schools. They don't work all the other stuff. Unless they're like some type of volunteer or overtime, they can do whatever, what have you. But their main focus is that. Same thing with other areas of, maybe you have traffic officers. And I don't know how it's done now, but I just want to take a little bit off their plate and still be, and like I said, you could move current officers to different areas. Traffic officers would be great. I mean, people don't obey any traffic laws on the East Coast at all anymore. They run lights, they do everything, because I think police just don't have time for it. With high crime rates, things of that nature, police have to focus on that. I just don't feel as though they focus on traffic enough anymore. Let's make a unit that goes strictly traffic. That would be nice. Strictly traffic. Enforcing some of the traffic laws. And if you put different sections, like make sure the budgets are different. So you don't have that in a straight school budget. The straight police budget. You do the school police are paid for by one area. You can fund a different budget. This goes towards traffic. You have a different budget that goes towards what have you, and so forth. And like I said, someone much smarter than me that knows more about policing than I do, but just from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem wise if Minnesota was to disband the whole thing, but just by saying that, you're going to get bad service from the police officers. The goal is not to get bad service, even worse service. I mean, maybe not murdering. Of course, they want murder. But, you don't want murdering, but you don't want worse service. You don't want guys that are not like the thing that happened in Atlanta where nobody was going out to do any jobs. What you want to do is, the goal is to incentivize them to do better. Anything in business or capitalism, in a capitalist society, you want to incentivize to do better. So when a car salesman sells cars, he gets paid more based on the volume of cars he sells. It incentivizes him to do his job well. And that's kind of what we got to get to with police. You can't just throw them out there, berate them for the actions of a few, and then expect them to do a quality job. We have to find a way, or people that have the power and the minds or the important people in place to figure out how to incentivize them to do the best job possible, while also incentivizing them against any wrong actions against any type of people. I mean, any people, not just black people, but any people. So that's kind of where I'm at with it. Just have a plan in place. If you're going to defund them, disband them, have a plan in place. Because what we don't really want is a bunch of disgruntled police running these streets. I know I've seen a lot of videos where people are berating the cops, and I understand why you're doing it. But every cop is not a bad cop. And if you go home that very same night from protesting or what have you, and an emergency happens, someone's breaking in your house, you're calling the cops. You don't want them saying, well, hell, I ain't helping nobody. We got to figure out a way to do this. That's the most prudent way to do this to help all involved. So, I don't know what you guys think about it. Rich black men, needy savage may me drop in their own thoughts about this. It's just kind of my thoughts on this whole disband / defund. I like the defund idea if you allocate correctly, make right departments. And my like I said, my one example of that is school police. How that's paid for by the school district, and they have the same training, but they focus on the schools. I mean, you can do the same thing with different places, different areas. Like I said, once again, above what I do or what I know, but if they can figure out how to do that, yes. And then also, like I said, you got to keep in mind, you got to make the police feel included in what's going on. If they feel like they're just bearing the blunt of everything for the actions of these cops that do bad, and I'm a full believer. Let me make this clear when I say these cops that do bad. I'm not saying that whole bad apple thing, that's like a narrative all over the media. Just a few bad apples. They keep saying that. And Chris Rock once said, you can't have bad apples. You just can't. It doesn't even sound bad, but you can't have that. The same way you can't say just a few bad pilots. Is what Chris Rock famously said. Just if you just had a few pilots, he just crashed another one. Somebody just crashed one. It's just one of the few bad apples. That would be tremendous. And it's got to be that same mentality for police. You can't have a few bad apples. That just messes everything up. So once again, hope maybe Needy Savage or Rich Black may follow up on it. But this is Roscoe Squeeze Off on Show on the Go. It's another episode, and now looking into the police interaction with people of color. All right, until next time, talk to you soon. Peace.